All right, what is test automation? And try not to give me a textbook version of the answer. Give me like, I'm talking to my 3-year-old answer. What is test automation?
You want to get some
It's what lazy people do, right?
Check all test cases.
It's a what?
Created test cases, and now we want computer to check it.
Check it, okay.
The scope of test cases to check, and we don't.
Okay, so that's part of the answer, absolutely.
same thing you want to do again and again, repetition.
Okay, that's part of the answer. What else?
Not doing that manually, to recursively if you're doing something.
Okay, so basically, if we were talking to a 3-year-old, it's 2 things, right? It's the computer checking something for me, and also the computer doing it over and over for me, right? So there's 2 things happening. That's exactly what this is. It's a process of writing a computer program to do testing that would otherwise need to be done by you. And it's also a process of executing those tests based on certain conditions. All right, so in advanced class, we're actually going to talk about CI. CI stands for continuous integration, and it's basically an umbrella that's used to describe tools like Bamboo, Jenkins, Circle CI. I'm blanking out. There's at least like 6 other ones out there. But so there are systems out there that will run your tests for you without you having to say go, right, and clicking that button. And that's part of automation. All right, that is part of automation, but we're going to be covering this part. All right, so there are 2 types of test automation: code-driven testing and graphical user interface testing. Which one do you think our stuff falls under? So let's do this. If you think it's the first one, raise your hand. Come on, come on. If you think it's the second one, raise your hand. If you haven't raised your hand, raise your hand. Oh, honest people, good job. All right, it's actually both. Some people already know this because they've heard me say this before. It's both because we're going to be using test unit. Test unit is actually a unit testing framework. It's designed for code testing, all right? Not for user interface testing. And then we're going to be using WebDriver, which is designed for user interface testing. What we're doing is we're doing this, right? We're combining both. Not only that, we're also going to, well, not in this class, but in advanced class, we're going to talk about things like data-driven testing, where you basically write a piece of code and you supply data into it, all right? So you throw different data into it, and different test cases are magically created based on the data you threw in. And I can give you an example of that. You can pretty much all think of an example like that. Let's do login, right? So what is login? Enter, enter, click. Enter, enter, click, right? So type, type, click, type, type, click. And how many login test cases can you think of? More than 5, right? More than 10 maybe, right? So more than a certain number. There's many of them. But it's always the same thing. Type, type, click. Check your result. Type, type, click. Check your result, right? So you can write one little piece of code and just supply data in and reuse the code instead of having to copy paste 10 times. So yeah, it's both. But most people consider WebDriver to fall under user interface testing, just an FYI. Okay, advantages of automation. People already screamed out some of them. One of them was that you can do it repetitively over and over and over without going crazy. That's a good advantage. What are some other advantages? What are advantages of automation? Why do it?
We might miss certain things at the computer.
Save time, so it's fast. What else?
Save money.
Why? How does it save money?
Pay for people working.
Well, that's true, but developers cost more.
But I still think it saves money because you automate this. You cannot have
Over time, it does save you money, but also you save money because there's less bugs, so you lose less customers, right? You don't miss things. So there's this thing called human efficiency. Humans over time learn how to be more efficient by taking shortcuts and cutting corners. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not a good thing, all right? And in code, that's not a good thing. For example, I don't notice this about myself. If I already know a URL of something, I'm not gonna go through 6 different menus to get there. I'm just gonna type it in and be like, damn, I'm there, right? There you go, fight. But a computer, it doesn't take that shortcut. It will still go menu, 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 right? So it's one of those examples. So let's look at what else we have here. So we have reliable, repeatable, reusable, better quality software, speed, and we have cost reduction. I'm not going to dwell on most of these. Most of you can understand what all of those say. So anyways, what is Selenium? Well, the first thing you should realize is that Selenium is not one tool, it's a set of tools. The first one we're going to get acquainted with is called Selenium IDE. However, it's a learning tool. It's not your means to an end. I don't expect you to go to a job and only use Selenium IDE and succeed. It's a crutch. It's a crutch that will help us learn to walk. Ultimately, though, WebDriver is where you want to go. All right? WebDriver is the library, again, that you will end up using depending on which language you end up writing in. Right? And even if you don't end up writing in Python, and I'm completely okay with you not writing in Python, even if you decide to do Ruby or Perl or Java or PHP or anything else, right? WebDriver is what you're going to be using. All right, make sense? Selenium IDE is just so we can learn how to use locators, so we can start understanding how automation works in general. So sometimes you need to wait for things. Sometimes you need to, check things. Sometimes you need to do things, right? That's essentially what we're doing Selenium IDE for. There's also other pieces of Selenium, other pieces that are, well, WebDriver, right? So Selenium IDE, WebDriver. There's also a piece called Remote Server. And there's also a piece called Selenium Grid, all right? Now, Remote Server has 2 uses. Remote Server is used when you want to be able to kick off tests from your machine, but actually run them somewhere else. Can you think of 2 examples of why you might want to do that? Kick off tests from here, but have them run over there?
Because the data is there. You're just going to the database.
Close-ish, but you can still access the database from somewhere else. So why? So one example I think all of you can totally relate with. I'm on the Windows, but I need to check my code on Safari browser. Can I run Safari browser on my machine? No. So I need to somehow be able to run it on a machine that has a Safari browser. But my tests are here, right? So I can either go physically install all of my code on another machine and go and click the button there, or I can just basically say, okay, remote server up, run the test on that machine. 2 steps, I'm done, right? That's cool. That's number 1. Number 2 reason is actually not as apparent, and it actually ties into Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid is when you want to run multiple tests at the same time. So if you have a lot of tests, like 1,000, and each one of them takes 2 minutes, which is not bad, you can see how that can take a really long time to execute, right? And honestly, nobody is that patient. Nobody's going to be waiting for 2 minutes times 1,000, whatever how many hours that works out to be. So at some point, we start splitting them and running them concurrently, and that's what Selenium Grid lets you do. But how does it let you do it? There is a hub, and it actually communicates to multiple remote servers. And each one of those remote servers runs on a different machine and communicates back the results. So it's basically a way to multiplex. That make sense? There's actually a 3rd reason to have a remote server, and that is, who's heard of Appium? Appium. Some people are into mobile. So it's basically a tool for mobile automation. And Appium is actually built on top of Selenium or WebDriver remote server. It literally boots up remote server, but it converts, instead of converting the commands you send into JavaScript, it converts them into, whatever, Android Java language or iOS C# language. So that's its own thing. But it's still built on remote server. So I think all of that is pretty self-explanatory, and I've already listed all those languages multiple times, so I won't do it again. Now, it is cross-browser. Selenium is cross-browser, but out of the box, it only runs on Firefox. All right? If you want to run it on Google Chrome, there's an extra little bit you need to have. Right? You can still use it, but you need to download an extra little executable, and you actually need to point to it in order to run on Google Chrome. Similarly with Opera, you need to download an extra little executable. Safari is actually unique because you still need to download an executable, but you execute it and it attaches to your Safari, and after that you never have to do it again. Like, you don't have to have it on your computer anymore. It actually modifies your Safari browser. Versus these all other executables, they just kind of hang out on your system forever. And if you ever remove them, things are broken. But if you put it back, it's fixed again. So it's a fun, sorry, I have like a cord here. So Selenium at this point is pretty old. It was actually invented in 2004. It didn't really become mainstream until 2006. It was originally called JavaScript Functional Tester, and it was originally done 100% in JavaScript HTML. Right now, however, most of the actual Selenium core is done in Java. So the actual core is all Java. It was originally designed to make test writing easy, and it's open source, which basically means it is free. Okay, you ready for the trivia? Okay, go back to your chemistry days. Find Selenium. Go, 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 go. Did you find it? Did you find it? Did you find it? So Selenium is actually number 34. And who knows what Selenium is used for?
It's used for treating mercury poisoning.
Exactly. Somebody's looking at my PowerPoint. Good job. And there's a joke behind that. I think some of you are too young to know this, but there used to be this company called Mercury, and it owned all of these really expensive softwares, such as WinRunner and QTP and LoadRunner and what else am I missing? Test Director. And they were very, very expensive, but they were also very difficult to use. They were just a pain in the butt to use. So this little company came out and decided to create Selenium, which is supposed to solve this poisoning by mercury. So the irony is that now both Mercury products and Selenium are owned by the same company, which is HP. HP bought it all up. And I don't think Test Director exists anymore. Is Test Director dead? Who knows? Is it dead? I know QTP and LoadRunner are still alive, but is Test Director dead?
No.
Yeah, so it's dead, right? I think it's dead now. And I think WinRunner is dead as well. Okay, so basically these are the tools. I already listed them out. There's Selenium ID. Selenium ID lets you export into WebDriver, and after that you have a choice. You can either run WebDriver through a remote server. You can run it directly. You can run it through remote server, or you can run it through the hub on multiple remote servers. Right? Make sense? Which is what I explained like 2 slides back.